All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something you've probably noticed: how politicians get marketed to you. And I mean marketed, just like your favorite brand of sneakers or that phone in your pocket.
You know how it is, right? Election season rolls around, and suddenly there are these one or two candidates. Their faces are everywhere, their names just stick in your head. But what about all the others? The ones who might even be saying similar things, but they just fade into the background. What's going on there?
Well, let me tell you, it is absolutely not an accident. It's a strategy. Whether a candidate captures your attention or completely fails to, it all comes down to a very deliberate, very calculated marketing plan. Okay, so let's dive right into what we're calling the political marketplace. See, to really get a grip on modern campaigns, you've got to shift your perspective a little. Stop thinking about it as just a noble debate of ideas and start seeing it for what it is: a super competitive marketplace. Think about walking down the soda aisle in a supermarket. There are so many choices, right? Politics is kind of the same. It's a crowded field with all these candidates competing for a tiny bit of space inside your head. And in that kind of environment, just having a good platform, well, it's just not enough anymore. To get noticed, they have to stand out. They have to become a brand. So that's the big question, isn't it? How do they actually do that? How do you turn a human being, a politician, into a brand? Well, it all boils down to one central idea. The strategy is called candidate-based positioning. And look, this goes way beyond just a catchy slogan or a few TV ads. This is a deep, strategic process. The whole point is to carve out a very specific spot for that candidate in your mind, a spot that makes them seem unique, strong, and most importantly, trustworthy. They're trying to forge a connection with you that hits you on both an emotional and a logical level. And what's so fascinating here is that this shows a major shift in how politics works. I mean, sure, the party's big ideas, the ideology, that stuff still matters. But more and more, the spotlight is on the candidate as an individual. We're talking about their personal traits, how they communicate, their character, or at least the character we perceive them to have. It's really shifted from being about the collective we of the party to the personal me of the candidate. All right, so if a candidate is a brand, what exactly goes into making one? Let's pull it apart and look at the anatomy of a political brand. First, let's look at it from the party's perspective. For them, a candidate is basically the standard bearer for their mission. So they have a checklist, right? They want someone who's an amazing communicator, someone who projects strong leadership, and of course, they have to be loyal to the party's core beliefs. A respectable past and being seen as trustworthy, that's the absolute foundation. But then there's us, the voters. And what we want can be a little different. Yeah, there's some overlap for sure, but we tend to zoom in on really personal qualities, don't we? Things like honesty and integrity. We want to know, are they in it for the public good or for themselves? Can they actually solve problems? And things like a focus on family values, that can be a huge deal for a lot of people. Okay, so this is where everything we've talked about gets layered together. It happens in 3 stages. First, you have the brand identity. Think of this as the campaign's blueprint. It's how they want you to see the candidate, the strategic goal. Then they build the brand personality. This is where they assign human-like traits to the candidate, making them seem, tough or compassionate or a straight talker. But here's the kicker. The third layer is the brand image. And that's how we, the voters, actually end up seeing them. That's the public reality. The entire massive effort of a campaign is basically to make sure that final image in our heads matches their original blueprint. So, building the brand is one thing, but making that brand win against all the others, that's the real game. This is where the strategy gets sharp, focused, and sometimes pretty aggressive. In commercial marketing, there's this really powerful question they ask. It comes from Turkish, kime karşı. It means against whom. And guess what? Political strategists use the exact same playbook. Before they can even begin to build their own candidate's brand, they have to decide who their main opponent is. Everything they do from that point on, every message, every ad, is designed to position their candidate against that specific rival. And this all feeds into a cycle that just never stops. It's not a one-and-done thing for an election. No way. Campaigns are constantly analyzing the voters in the market. They're designing these super targeted messages.
They're working nonstop to create that difference between their guy and the other guy. And then, the final step? They communicate and communicate and communicate again, hammering that message home on TV, social media, everywhere.
Okay, so we've looked at the machinery, the whole strategy, but let's get to the most important part. Why does any of this matter to you? What does this mean when you're sitting on your couch watching a debate or scrolling past an ad on your phone?
Because knowing the strategy behind the image is a game changer. It's actually incredibly empowering. Once you realize you're being marketed to, you can start to see past this slick presentation, past the perfect sound bites, and you can ask the question that really matters. Okay, but what's the actual substance here?
It's like having a decoder ring for politics. When you know the playbook, you can start to tell the difference between a candidate who is just a really well-packaged product and one who might actually have authentic leadership qualities. It helps you look at their brand personality and ask, okay, does this actually line up with their voting record? Does it match what they're actually proposing?
So I'll leave you with this one thought. The next time you see a candidate, on TV, online, anywhere, try to look at them through this lens. Ask yourself, am I seeing a person or am I seeing a perfectly positioned brand? And if you think it's a brand, well, you know the next question to ask. Against whom?